So yeah, this make note of this bullet points. Yeah, okay, so let's break that down. Sine and cosine always lie between -1 and +1. Yes. What does this mean? So remember, this is our in graph context, this is x-axis, y-axis. So let's forget tangents. So let's just focus on cosine and sine for the time being. Because this is +1, +1, -1, -1. Sine and cosine cannot go outside this. They will always be within the range of +1 and -1, because that's what you're dealing with, +1 and -1. So let's break it down more to understand it better. So say you have, let me see, different color. Too much choices. Say you have an angle 30 degrees angle, or 60, whatever, and you want to find and you're looking for the cosine. Remember, SOHCAHTOA. K is cosine equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So say you're looking for the cosine, or sometimes call it cos. You just draw on your x-axis. You have to merge down on your x-axis. So to find the point of your cos 30 on your x-axis. So you want to find the sine of 30 degrees. Sine equals to opposite over hypotenuse. All you just have to do is find, what sine is. So basically, cosine, in order to read cosine, you use your x-axis. So if you look at the cosine, is your x-axis you're referring to, and to that, find the sine of an angle is your y-axis. Tangent is just and tangent is basically cosine over sine, or sine over cosine. I'm going to have to check that. I'm sorry. So tangent is, it's easy to get once you have your sine and cosine. But for your cos or cosine, sometimes you shorten it for cos. For example, you're looking for cos 30, you just say cos 30, or cos 60, or and for sine, that's the shortest you can go. As you know, sine is shortened into sine, from this to this, and cos is shortened from cosine to cos. So yeah, so in order to find your cosine, you make reference to you read it from the x-axis, and in order to find your sine, you read it from the y-axis. And so if you're looking for the cosine of 60, you just check a calculator to get the cosine and sine of this stuff. But I won't be using my calculator for that. If you have a calculator, just type it up to know what that is. Just know that your sine and cosine cannot exceed -1 and +1. It will always be within that range, at least within that range. Let's say I look for sine of, I don't know, or cosine of 120 degrees I look for the cosine of 120 degrees. You have to check what it's reading on the x-axis. What is it reading on the x-axis to know? This is not accurate, by the way. This is not to scale. This is just a rough sketch to know your cosine. And if you want to find for your sine, what you simply have to do is go check the y-axis to note your sine. Remember, cosine, you check the readings on the x-axis, and sine, you check the readiness on the y-axis. Or in when you get a triangle, say it's outside of a graph, and you get a triangle, rectangle triangle, and you get theta. Let's say theta is I don't know, 60 degrees. You know this is the opposite, because the rectangle is opposite to the rectangle is opposite to the angle, to the angle in question. And adjacent, this is your adjacent, because the opposite angle and the angle in question are sitting next to each other. So you just say adjacent means next to. So the right angle is next to the angle in question, and the angle in question is next to the right angle. So this is where your adjacent will fall. And the hypotenuse is obviously the longest line, which is the longest line of the triangle. So that's a quick. So in order to find your cosine and your sine, you simply have to, so as mentioned earlier, I don't write again, you remember. And if you don't remember, the internet is there. So to branding, to what's the English? To broaden your learning scope. So let's talk a bit about tangents. So when referring to tangent, I said earlier, sorry for the confusion I had earlier. It's tangent is sine over cosine, or opposite over adjacent. So when talking about tangent, your value of sine is varied by your value of cosine for that angle. So let's use tan 90 degrees for example. So tan 90 degrees, you are moving from your x-axis and clockwise to your y-axis. So tan 90 degrees is a whole full angle. So yeah, so we know that when you're coming from the x-axis, you have traveled from the x-axis to the y-axis, you're no longer touching the x-axis. In fact, you're fully on the y-axis. So your x-axis is 0 because you've gone from 1 and you've traveled all the way to your y-axis, and you're touching it, you're sleeping on your y-axis, and your x-axis is 0. So 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 your tangent would be, what's your so now your line is here. So what's your x-axis? Sorry, what's your sine? Your sine is the value of 1. So your sine will be 1 over, and what's your x-axis? Your x-axis is 0. And this will give you a zero division error, because nothing is divisible by 0. So the tan of 90 will give you an error. Let's say the tan of let's say the tan of the tan of 60 degrees. No. Let's say the let's say the tan of 60 degrees. This is not to scale, so I can't really understand. And I can't remember what it is of head. So let's say we're looking for tan 60. So what's tan 60? No, we're looking for tan 16 in reference to sine and cosine. So what is cos 60? My something is not accurate, so I'll need to check it up on the. I need to, what's it called? Work data using calculator. So cos 60 is 0.5. So cos 60, remember cos is the one at the bottom, is 0.5. And sine, what is sine 60? 0.866. So in order to find the tan is equal to, 0.86 divided by 0.5, and that will give us 1.732. So that's our tan. So tan is the division of sine divided by cosine. So that's that. So I hope you guys understand, the involvement of cosine and sine on graph. Cosine is x-axis and sine is y-axis. So you can read your degrees from anywhere. So if you want to know if you are in this quadrant, in the third quadrant, I'll expatiate on quadrant later. If you're in this quadrant and you're trying to find what is the sine of, I don't know, what is the sine of 180? Yeah, let's ask you that. What's the sine of 180? Sine of 180, obviously sleeping on the x-axis, sorry, on the y-axis. So you traveled from x, from positive x to negative y. So what's this sine of 180? Sine of 180 is obviously minus 1, because it's touching the negative axis, and it's going to be minus 1. What is the cosine of what's the cosine of 180? The cosine of 180 would be, because it's traveled from positive x-axis to negative x-axis, the cosine of 180 would be negative 1. What is the sine of 180? The sine of 180 would be 0, because it's sleeping on 0. It's not really touching the y-axis. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, let's discuss something else.